Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
Bam, we're recorded. It's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. We're just a couple of dudes hanging out, drinking some whiskey, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. Tonight's episode 30 for us. We've been kicking this thing for 6+ months now. It's pretty awesome. And basically, for tonight, we're going to be providing a recap of last weekend's conference championship games, as well as providing some thoughts on the upcoming quarterback carousel that we think we're going to be seeing in the league this year. There's quite a few names that have been getting thrown around. So, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's good, man. Friday night, man. Just got the whiskey out, and I'm ready to roll, man. I'm primed. I'm feeling good. So, let's see. Before we dive into last weekend's games and some of the news from around the league, why don't we kick it off and do Name That Stadium? So, this is a segment we've been doing for, I don't know, a couple of months now. Basically, for anybody watching, you can see that James is traveling around the country here. He's got a stadium in his background. For a while, he was putting a stadium for one of the home teams that was playing that weekend. There's nobody playing this weekend, so we just put a stadium in the back now. It's any of the teams in the league. If you think you know what stadium it is, take a shot, throw in your guess in the comments section on our page. And if you're right, you'll get a shout out in next week's show. For this past week, James was out at Ford Field, home of the Detroit Lions. What was your inspiration for picking Ford Field last week, James?
Well, I wanted to pick Ford Field all season, but the Lions were pathetic and they didn't have any really big games. So I was just like, I'm going to switch it up and just pick Ford Field for the fun of it.
You just took the chance. See, I thought it
Yeah.
might have been something to do with, the news about Stafford was kind of timely, or you were just taking the chance since you didn't get
Yeah.
it all year.
I didn't even think of the Safford thing when I picked the stadium last week. I just wanted to do Ford Field.
Yeah, nice. Well, cool. Well, yeah. So, hey, anybody who's watching, if you think you know where James is at tonight, hit us up. If you get it right, we'll give you a shout out next week's show. But other than that, why don't we move on here to our recap of the past week? And, since we're going to be doing the quarterback carousel, I thought it was appropriate just to talk about some of the big names hanging out there and just some of the news that's going on. I'm sure we'll talk in the quarterback carousel section about where we think these guys might go and what the teams might be able to get. But let's just start off with Deshaun Watson. So he has officially asked for a trade now, and the team has come out basically saying they have no intention of moving him. I don't know, man. What do you think? Where do they go from here?
Well, from what I heard, he officially asked for a trade weeks ago,
Okay.
and then it was just finally reported this past week. But I don't know. I guess like you could say live up to your damn contract, and because they can like fine him, and then like if he starts missing training camp and stuff like that, um, some of the guarantees start to void and stuff. But honestly, if they do that, like the time to trade him is before the draft.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you're gonna get the most for him. Anytime after the draft, you're gonna have to wait a year to trade him, and it's just I think this team just done fucked up. Like
Yeah.
something's really seriously going on there, and especially like with their coaching hire, like nobody was interviewing this guy. Not one. This was his only interview for a head coaching job. I forget his name, like Cully.
Cully? Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I saw it and I was like, who? Never heard of the guy. And I guess he was the passing game coordinator in Baltimore, and the
Yeah. And the
pass.
passing game's getting just
Yeah,
getting crushed, man. They're saying there basically was no passing game in Baltimore.
yeah, they were 32 out of 32 last year.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know who
Yeah,
the
what
guy
made
is
this guy special? Yeah.
exactly. I mean, yeah, the Lions hired somebody that nobody was interviewing, but at least he had some success somewhere.
Hmm.
This guy's been in the league 20, 25 years or whatever it is, and coaching in the league 25 years, and never even had a offensive defensive coordinator job. It's like who, what, why? And I was really surprised that it wasn't Bieniemy. I was sure it was going to be Bieniemy, but
Yeah.
maybe Bieniemy saw the situation and said, no, I don't want it.
That could be. A lot of people are saying that the environment in Houston is just toxic, and a lot of people don't want to be there. With all that being the case, I think that a trade is going to happen. I don't think that they can dig their heels in and force him to play there. I think that you're basically just asking for a guy to put forward a piss poor performance because he knows that he doesn't want to be there. You're not going to let him go. And like you're saying, the time to trade him is now. You got to get it done sooner than later. You're going to get some valuable picks if you do it now, and it gives you time to figure out what to do with those picks. I think it's going to happen, man. Um,
Yeah. And with like the guy not wanting to be there, like look like equated to the NBA. Look at James Harden. Like he came into the season out of shape and like had gained like 20 pounds and wasn't trying at all. And finally, like 4 games in or whatever, they traded him because it's like dude's not going to play here. And then like a week later, he's in shape and actually trying and doing decent. So I mean, we'll see what happens with Watson, but I mean, I have some there's some interesting hypotheticals that have been thrown out there for him.
oh yeah, I mean, I heard one just the other day that was to the Jets for four first round picks, two this year and two next year, and uh, and I don't even remember if that had Darnold going back in the mix, and so it was like, okay, well, that's impressive, four first round picks. And then I saw one with Carolina who's made comments about being aggressive to go after him. I heard that they might try and package up McCaffrey as a way of making it, making sure there's enough incentive because they don't have as many of the picks as some of these other teams. And I mean, you look at them and it's like with how well their running game was with McCaffrey barely playing this year, yeah, I guess you could hang him out there as trade bait to get a guy like Watson, and that would at least catch their attention, I would think. But you know, it's going to depend, man. It's going to depend. I think that the team, they definitely want to dig in their heels, and that's good. I think digging in your heels a little bit does kind of help your trade position because you're kind of telling teams, hey, you better blow us away, or we're just going to flip you the bird. And so there's no fucking around,
Yeah.
But yeah, they're gonna have to at least listen to some teams here pretty soon, I think.
Well, plus with if Carolina were to trade McCaffrey, if you look at you thought that their running game would take a huge hit when McCaffrey went down, and it didn't. Mike Davis stepped in and did a phenomenal job. So I mean,
Exactly.
it makes sense. Why are you paying McCaffrey so much money if you can just plug in Davis and get similar production?
Yeah, and maybe Houston probably, looking at what they did with David Johnson, who knows? Maybe they're like, yeah, we don't want to do that again. And honestly, Houston's offensive line sucks. So if you're going to go and make a move like that, you better be using whatever picks you get in the mix on some offensive linemen as well. Otherwise, you're just kind of spoiling bringing in McCaffrey. But, who knows? Um, so the next one is obviously Matthew Stafford. He seems to be the number two guy that everybody's talking about. And there's been reports this week that the demand for Stafford is lower than the team anticipated. Go figure. Um, I'm just wondering, are teams waiting to see what happens with Watson first? Or is this something where the Lions should be legitimately concerned? Um, I think, or even it's a factor of maybe just teams are kind of sandbagging it because, yeah, it's a combination of things. They want to see what happens with Watson, but they also are not in any kind of a rush because the longer they wait, the more desperate Detroit might get and be willing to take, a lower value kind of deal to make the move. What do you think,
Well,
man?
couple things I've heard about Stafford is the first thing I heard. Well, Watson, I've heard that more than half the league has contacted Houston about trading for him.
Hmm.
With Stafford, I've heard a little bit more than a third of the leagues contacted Detroit, and at least 5 teams, I think it was at last count, had offered a minimum of a first round pick for Stafford.
Oh, see, that's encouraging. I didn't even hear that. I heard, and whether this has any validity to it or not, I heard San Fran offered 2 second round picks and 2 third round picks. And it sounded like Detroit basically was like instantly, nope, that's not enough. But that was like the only one that I've actually heard that, you know, at least sounded like it came from somewhere maybe legit. But I have no real source to, like point out to that. So it's all kind of hearsay.
Yeah, I I hadn't looked it up recently, but I swear I heard that at least a third or at least 5 teams had offered
A first round
first
pick.
round pick.
And honestly, like to me, that would make sense because, Stafford, I get it. He's no spring chicken, but he's still like only what, like 32 or something? I mean, he's got, easily 5+ prime years left in the NFL, and maybe more with the way quarterbacks are playing these days, where, you roll the dice on them. You're not really rolling the dice. You know what you're getting, and it's just a matter of can you keep him happy enough and on a good enough team that he's going to want to play until he's like 40, like some of these guys? And then you end up getting like freaking 8 sweet years out of it. I mean, that's, well worth a first round pick. So, but I can see how the value could be hindered a little bit because everybody wants to see what happens with Watson. And then I think on top of that, you have, the last I saw, a lot of these mock drafts are now putting out 4 first round quarterbacks. I think that takes away from some of the value for Stafford. And you still got guys like Wentz hanging out there that, could be traded. And, that's something that's kind of in the mix. And so, but I think in terms of like the pecking order, Watson's one, Stafford's two. There's going to be teams that want him. It's just a matter of can Detroit's new regime play the game well enough to get what we need to get in return for him. And I
Yeah.
can see you're researching
Oh,
feverishly.
I was just looking it up. One of the things apparently I didn't know this is Stafford's owed a $10 million roster bonus on March 21st.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the deadline for it. I
Yeah,
I,
I
s-
did
I was-
hear. Yeah, I did hear that some teams could be slow playing it because the closer we get to that, maybe the more desperate the team is. I think when you're talking about an NFL franchise and you're giving away your franchise quarterback, you can't let 10 million bucks be a deal breaker here. I think you got to get the right value, even if you got to shell out that money in the process. That's just my opinion.
yeah, but I was looking up because I hadn't heard anything specific about any of the offers from San Francisco. So I was looking up to see if I could find it really quick.
Hmm.
And
Nothing
yeah, it's just a lot of reading to
to
find it.
to
Like
get to the meat. Yeah. Well, this was a
yeah,
grapevine thing. This was a friend that had heard this. So, is that friend just kind of blowing some smoke up my ass? I don't know. When he said 2 seconds and 2 thirds, I thought, yeah, that could be a legit offer because, San Fran probably doesn't want to give up a first round pick if they don't have to. I would have assumed with San Fran that the offer would have been something involving Jimmy G, where it's like, hey, we'll give you a couple picks and we'll give you Jimmy G in return. Then you at least have a starting level quarterback on the team and you can do what you want with the guy. If I'm the Lions, I don't want Jimmy G, but I would look at those kinds of deals. Like for example, when I heard about Carolina going after Watson, I thought hey, if we could work a deal with Carolina where we get some picks and Teddy Bridgewater in return, I would strongly consider that because, he's not lighting the world on fire, but you know that you're at least getting a high efficiency quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's going to at least keep the team afloat while they kind of get through this fluctuation period of gutting the roster and finding their new core. And, really 2021 is going to be all about like ripping this thing apart and starting over basically.
For some reason, I thought Bridgewater was a free agent.
I'm pretty sure he signed a 3-year deal with Carolina, and so he's got 2 years left.
Oh, you're right. It was a 3-year deal. I was misremembering. Like for some reason, I thought he was a free agent at the end of the year,
Yeah, and I'm
or
sure
at the end
his
of the season.
contract's got to be palatable too. So I mean, you do something like that, I think you're kind of like getting a good balance there, where you're getting a veteran quarterback to kind of help keep you in some games while you're kind of figuring everything else out over this next year. And then, if he decides to take that next, well, not if he decides, but if he happens to take that next step as a quarterback, you could always sign him longer if you want. But if you're not totally comfortable, that's when you make your move. And maybe after this year, you draft a quarterback and let him ride the pine under Teddy for a year before you make the switch. I think that something like that, as a fan of the Lions, I'd be happy with that. But I just hope that whatever they do, we're getting some good value.
No, his cap hit for 2021 is Bridgewater's is 23 million approximately.
Um, so
It's
I
22.95. It's his
okay, because
base
I
salary
saw
of 17
yeah,
plus 5 million of the prorated signing bonus plus point 0.7 million in per game roster bonuses and 0.25 million in workout bonuses.
yeah, and so I guess that's where I'd like to have some clarification as to what carries over in the trade, because if the Panthers have to eat the signing bonus part of it, and we're talking just the salary plus the workout bonuses, you're talking 17 million plus a little bit on top. I mean, that's a steal for a starting quarterback in the NFL these days.
Yeah. So it looks like 13 million would be his cap hit if they trade him.
Okay, that's not bad for them if they're
Yeah.
going after a guy like Stafford, you know.
Yeah. So Carolina would eat 10 million of it, and then the new team would have a cap hit of 13 million.
Interesting.
That's not that bad. Not that bad
Yeah, and I,
considering.
I know that I know that the cap for this year is going to kind of fuck things up because it's expected to come down, but I also think you look at a team like Philadelphia for years has been flirting with cap disaster, and it's one of these things where where there's a will, there's a way. You just got to get creative and you got to make the moves, and smart guys will figure it out if that's what they really want to do.
Yeah, and it's workable. Like there's a a ton of ways to fit under the cap. A couple of the teams are like really screwed. Like I think it was like the Saints are like something like 70 million over the projected cap for next year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard that they're going to be in some trouble. That's. I mean, hey, that's where you gotta. There's going to be some hard decisions. A team like them, are you going to be trading a bunch of people? Are you going to be, restructuring a bunch of deals? I mean, it's going to be a combination of things, obviously. And even then, what happens with Breeze? That'll be a factor. They got a whole heck of a lot going on down there.
Yeah, they do. They're them like I don't know. Like I told you during the week, I had somewhere between 20 and 22 teams that you can't say 100% that their current quarterback coming in or from last year will be their quarterback this year. I finally settled on 20 different teams.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. All right, so save that note. let's burn through the rest of this, and then let's do that in the quarterback carousel because I think that's going to be we're going to go down the line. We're going to look at all these teams and talk it out. But so for our recap of this past week, I did have a couple other things to talk about before we get to the championship game recap, and one of them is Central Michigan down is what I'm calling it. Sadly, we got two CMU players. Looks unlikely that they're going to play in the Super Bowl. Eric Fisher tore his Achilles in the AFC Championship game, and then Antonio Brown looks like banged up his knee in the NFC Championship game. We still got Sean Murphy Bunting though, and he's had a pretty phenomenal playoff run so far, getting a pick in each of the three games thus far. At least we'll have some Central Michigan representation. But I was pretty stoked there for a minute looking at three possible, not just CMU players in the Super Bowl, but three possible starting players in the Super Bowl. I always got to throw out my CMU love. So I thought I'd get that little nugget in there. Aside from that, the Senior Bowl's been going on this week. Have you been following that at all, James?
I haven't really been following the senior bowl. Like, I've wanted to, but I just had a busy week. Like, there's some quarterbacks that are interesting that are playing, like Mac Jones in the back of the first round, maybe early second round is interesting to me. I just haven't had time to really follow it.
I got you. I'm in the same boat. I've not had the time to get on up to speed on it yet, but I'm definitely going to be reading up on it as time permits because even though the Senior Bowl seems to kind of fly under the radar a lot every year, there's always at least like one or two gems that come out of the Senior Bowl if you look deep enough. And, I'm sure the guys are there. I'm interested to find out who they are. And, I'm sure at least one of the names I'll be like screaming about for the Lions to go after come draft time. But, we'll see how it shakes out there. The last thing I had was just that I saw Ron Rivera. The news came out that he's cancer free. So congratulations to him. Despite such a crazy, tumultuous year for him personally with his health, they had a heck of a first year in Washington. And so, happy to see him getting healthy and, see what he does in year two.
Yeah, that was definitely good news this week for him. And I mean, they got pieces there. They just need one or two pieces here and there, and that team could be a contender for a few years. They done a hell of a job just turning around. Yeah, they were under 500, but they still won their division.
Oh yeah, and that defense was fierce.
Yeah, I was early on. I started talking about how good that defense was. Chase Young was 20 times, 30 times better than I thought he would be as a rookie. And I was pissed off when last year when the Lions beat Washington. I think it was that gave them, or they won their last game, and if they would have lost it, they would have had
swung the picks.
Yeah. And I was because I so wanted them to draft Chase Young. I was excited. I knew he'd be a good talent in the NFL. I didn't think he'd be this good that quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it helps. He landed on a defensive line that's just stacked with former first round picks. And I think that helped take a lot of pressure off of him. I think we're used to seeing guys that get drafted that high. They go to a team that's just like, bare bones when it comes to talent. And so, they're getting freaking double, triple teamed because they're the only guy on that defensive line. And, this probably helped him a little bit, but, I don't want to take anything away from him. The dude is a freak athlete and lit it up. And you could see the intensity in some of those games where he basically just willed his way to beat his guy and get to the quarterback. And so I think it's a great combination of things. I don't mean to say that to take anything away from the guy.
Yeah, no, but I think one of the things, if I remember correctly, they somewhere a couple weeks into the year, they made him a captain on the team, which which is rare for a rookie to become a captain like that. And so he has that leadership quality in the locker room too. So he's definitely the key person on that defense and the leader of that defense by now.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, for a young guy. All right, good stuff. So why don't we talk about the AFC and NFC championship games? We'll start with the Bucks and the Packers. What did you think, James? How did that game look to you?
I've gone back and forth on that game. Like it was you had Rodgers who everyone's saying, oh, on the 3rd and 8 he should have tried to run. He probably could have scored. He couldn't have scored on that 3rd and 8 before they kicked with like a little bit over 2 minutes left. He wouldn't have been able to score. You had two defenders right there with angles on him. He would have gotten a couple of yards, but he wouldn't have scored. And then to kick the field goal, like if you're going to kick a field goal, it has to change the math somehow.
Yeah.
Like if you're down, say you're down 6 and you kick a field goal, then all you need is a field goal. If you're down 8 and you kick a field goal, you're still going to need the touchdown. So why are you going to kick the field goal? Plus you're on the 8-yard line. You don't get the touchdown on 4th down. You're giving the ball back on the 8-yard line. Over 2 minutes left in the game. You have the timeouts. You never know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, I thought, definitely the coaching decision there was suspect, and I saw something afterwards that by kicking the field goal, they had a 9% chance to win the game, but that if they would have went for the touchdown, it would have given them close to a 25% chance to win the
Mm-hmm.
game. And so it was just like from an analytics standpoint, he didn't have it right. And then just I don't know, just like every just kind of logical way of looking at it, it didn't make sense. Like you're saying, you're still going to have to get a touchdown. Why not go for it now and know what you're going to do? And then the flip side of that is, shit, you guys haven't really been able to stop Brady all night long, minus his 3 picks, which they were gifts. But aside from those picks, man, the Bucks just ran up and down the field like crazy in that game. And it was weird because you think of a team when the quarterback turns the ball over like that, normally they do not fucking stay in the game like that. And it just, to me, was a little bit eerie. I was thinking about the New Orleans game, and I'm like, wow, man, like Tampa Bay, it seemed like had a lot of things going their way against the Saints. And then in this game, it's like they came out like hot, moving the ball well, scoring well. And then it was like basically the turnovers didn't even matter. It's like Tom has these turnovers, and then the defense just like fucking clamped down on Rodgers. And so it's like, wow, and I know that that's like an exaggerated way of putting it because they did get it within that touchdown at the end, but it just man, it made me think about Tampa Bay, and I'm like, man, they're just the way they're winning. It has me scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if you look at one of his picks, I call it Tom Brady only had 2 picks. One of the picks was he was about to be sacked on 3rd down, and he just threw a deep ball,
Launched it, yeah.
launched it, hoping something would happen. That was just a punt. That's
Yeah,
all that.
I think they said that in the game too. It was like a punt pick or something. It's like, he just launched it knowing that, that was the best option basically. And yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it just from the get-go in the game though. That defense was playing soundly. Like it was you had the Murphy Bunting interception, which granted I can see the argument that there should have been a penalty on that play. There was holding, but then throughout the rest of the game they were pretty much letting that go up until Tampa's last
Right at
drive
the
where they
end.
called it on King.
Yep. Yeah,
So
yeah, it's like, hey, with the refs, it's like you got to be more consistent. Either you're going to let them play it out or you're not. Don't cherry pick the time to do it when it clearly favors one of the teams and not the other at that point.
yeah, I thought the funniest thing of the game, and I think I texted you about it, was when Brady had the QB sneak touchdown, and then as he was going off the field, he tried to high five the ref.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the replay of that later on, and yeah, that was a good laugh. I mean, shit, it's Brady, man. I mean, if I was that ref, I probably would have slapped his hand.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. It was like like everyone online was going crazy. Oh, see, the fix is definitely in. He's finally giving credit to. It's like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's cool they made it, you know. We're watching history with every time this guy does this stuff. All right, kicking it over to the AFC, we had the Bills and the Chiefs. What'd you think of that game, man?
Yeah, I'm so pissed off on this about that game. I way bit the cheese on how well Buffalo's playing and this alleged Mahomes foot injury that
Yeah, that foot injury apparently was like not a factor at all. Yeah.
yeah. And I also am really annoyed because at the beginning of the season I had that matchup in the AFC Championship game. I thought it was going to be Buffalo Kansas City and Kansas City was going to win. So it's like why I don't know why I went against my pick on it, my original pick on
Yeah.
it. It was just
Well, because you had a whole season of film that you got to watch and a lot of different variables that made you think differently. You know, when you make those preseason predictions, man, it's hard to stick by those after you see everything happen throughout the year.
yeah, true. But if going back to my preseason predictions, I had Kansas City Tampa Bay Super Bowl,
Yeah, that's intense.
which
We're
I
going to
mean
start calling you the Oracle.
I had a couple of the games in the playoffs, teams wrong or playoff teams wrong, and but it's like I had Kansas City, Tampa Bay, I had Kansas City, Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. I got Green Bay wrong. I thought they would lose to New Orleans in the first round. I didn't think they would have had the bye, but I thought they would lose to New Orleans and New Orleans lose to Tampa Bay. It's like should have just stuck with my picks or my preseason pick.
Hmm.
But the game wise, like nothing really stuck out in the game from a Buffalo standpoint. They looked pedestrian in the game. They looked like they weren't like their creativeness on offense wasn't there.
Yeah, I think that from what I saw, it started a little bit slow for the Chiefs, and then basically they lit on fire like they usually do, and that was it, man. And then they got out so fast that Buffalo, you could tell they were like in scramble mode way too early in the game. And Josh Allen made a good attempt to get him back in it at the end. I was actually impressed with how well he did, but it was too much at that point. And one of the things that a lot of people are overlooking in this because of how awesome the Chiefs' offense is, but Kansas City's defense has actually been playing really well, and they played great in that game for the most part when you consider they were going up against the Buffalo offense, which is also a very hot offense. They were playing really tight man coverage, slowing them down for a lot of the game, and at the end, Buffalo made kind of a push to get back in it, but dang man, and then you look at how many times their defensive line, in their linebackers or safeties, whoever, got pressure against Josh Allen and he was just able to kind of like work his magic and get out of the pocket and make a run or whatever else. I tell you what, man, I'm a little bit nervous for Tampa Bay going into this Super Bowl. If Kansas City's defense plays like that, Brady is going to have to just get the ball out fast as hell, which we
Mhm.
know he can do. And their offensive line has been playing really darn good this year. But man, any other quarterback, they would have been all over him in that game.
Yeah, and it's with Kansas City. The interesting thing I think I heard this week was like even in losses, Mahomes in his career has never lost by more than one score.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just
intense.
that's ridiculous. But then on the flip side, Tom Brady in his career, like he's 43% of the time. Like some stat I saw is like 43 or 46% of the time he's made the Super Bowl in his career. So he's more likely in a season to. It was like the weirdest stat. Like he was more likely in a season to make the Super Bowl then on any given shot, Steph Curry was to make a three-pointer.
I saw that. Yeah. And it is insane. He's almost 50-50 making the Super Bowl throughout his career.
Yeah, and at the start, after he plays in this Super Bowl, he will have played in 18% of all Super Bowls.
It's just so insane, man. It's so insane. Uh, and like because of that, it's like shit. I kind of want to see the guy win another one. It's just so crazy. But
Yeah,
I'm also like, fuck, it's somebody else's turn. But now it's Mahomes, and it's like, well, he already got one, so it's like, well, I don't know. I'm torn, man. I'm torn.
yeah. I I'm a little torn on it too. Like I told you, yeah, it'd be cool if Tampa Bay won it and then Brady retires and just add another team to our list that we're going to talk about that needs a quarterback and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because
or
I got him on my list as not going anywhere for one more year, but if he wins, that could change things. You never know.
yeah, and then you have Mahomes who apparently Mahomes is 2-2 in his career against Brady.
I didn't realize they played that many times already.
Yeah, I guess like well, I guess it makes sense because they played once already this season, and this is
Once in
this
the
is
playoffs.
Mahomes' third year
Hmm.
starting. So they played him once this season. Kansas City was number one in their division for how many years? So they would have had New England on their schedule the 2 years that before that Mahomes and Brady were in the same conference, and then they played in the playoffs 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
makes sense that this would be their fourth time, but it's just like, wow, like to be 2-2, right? I mean, even if you end up 2-3, that's pretty damn good against Brady.
Oh, hell yeah, man. You're talking about the best ever, basically.
Yeah, and one of the losses was the overtime loss in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's impressive. I was actually just talking to one of our buddies the other day, and I'm like, yeah, it's basically old Brady versus new Brady in the Super Bowl. That's what we're watching.
Yeah, I've been hearing it's goat versus baby goat.
Versus Baby Goat. I like that better because when you say old Brady versus new Brady, it's like you're kind of taking something away from Mahomes because he's his own guy, and it's like a totally different quarterback. But yeah, I like that goat versus baby goat. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's like if Michael Jordan and LeBron James were to play in the NBA Finals,
yeah.
which is
All right.
crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the game picks and playoff bet for just a moment here. I mean, it was settled before the games last week, so I didn't actually tally up our points and our wins. You kicked my ass. I yeah, I all I want to know is, have you picked a bottle yet?
I have not. I had intended on Saturday to go to my store and scope it out, and then like the wife and I were just kind of relaxing, watching TV, and it's like, oh shit, it's 6 o'clock. Where the hell did they go?
I
So
got you.
on Saturday. So I hope to go tomorrow and think it out. I have one that I'm seriously considering, and it probably is going to be the winner. It's the 14-year Widow Jane, but I'll see once make sure once I go to the store.
Nice, nice. Well, yeah. Hey, keep me posted, and if they don't have it, or you're just not totally sure. Some of those ones from those online retailers I sent you, they had some pretty good options, and so you just keep me posted. We'll make it happen. A deal's a deal. You fulfilled your part. Obviously, I'm going to fulfill my part, and I like it, man. I mean, hey, we each get a bottle of whiskey. It's cool.
Yeah, the only problem with some of the online retailers you sent me was then you started suggesting was like, oh, I already have that bottle. Oh, I already have that bottle.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't check if any of them shipped to California. I just assumed they did because if they shipped to Michigan, which is one of the hardest fucking states to get distribution to, like more than likely they ship to California. One of them was in California, so you know.
Yeah. But then again, my store, like I went online and like they couldn't ship liquor to California.
Yeah, so like you have to get like a certain license. So like you could be a retail store but not have a license to ship. It's like a whole separate thing. And that's like one
Yeah.
of the problems in Michigan is that all these out of state people are just like, well, I'm not going to get a freaking license in Michigan, you know, unless I know that I'm going to have a ton of demand. Forget that. And you know, Michigan, I don't know. There's all sorts of weird rules here. I don't even want to try to think about it right now.
Yeah, well, for various reasons, we're not going to discuss why. I was researching it, and it's like each state has their own specific requirements
Hmm.
to be able to ship into that state, and then the state you're shipping from has their own specific requirements to ship out of that state.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to have like perfect harmony or it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I can understand having issues with, and I guess even like if you're in a state, shipping within the state is a whole different story.
Oh, even that's basically impossible in Michigan. I've heard
Yeah,
about like the craft distillers here in Michigan. You know, they're getting huge. It's like one of the big craft distilling states, which, you know, kind of makes sense. Michigan's one of the big craft beer states. And I heard that, you know, like I think some of the laws have opened up a little bit, but, you know, for years they were bitching because they're like, geez, I can't even like distribute some of my own stuff because the state rules are that restrictive. And so it's,
mhm.
you know, it's like, come on, man, if you can't even deliver your own whiskey that you're making, what the hell? Like, that's just, you're shooting them in the foot.
Well, for and it's a prohibition thing for like the well, post office can't send any alcohol through the post office, and the other shippers, they have, for them to be able to accept a shipment of alcohol, you have to have a distributor license. You can't,
Yep.
like, even
Yep.
just being a distillery or a brewery, you can't ship. You have to have a specific distributor license to be able to ship. So it's just a
You got it.
pain
Yeah.
in the ass from what I saw. It's like you kind of need to make this easier, especially with the pandemic and shit. Like, I mean, people don't want to go to the fucking store. Just let them ship it.
Oh, yeah. And I heard that Kentucky just passed something where if you're a distiller in Kentucky, you basically get that distribution right where you can like ship out your own stuff within the state. And I'm sure
Yeah,
there are some states that are like honoring that, but it's like mainly in Kentucky. And this was like the pandemic was like one of the reasons that apparently it got pushed through, which makes good
yeah.
sense, you know?
You can't ship fucking liquor, but I can order online and have beer or mixed drinks delivered from the bar around the corner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What kind of shit sense does that make? None.
Yeah, exactly. And that
Uh,
and that they don't even check to see if you're fucking 21. At least if you're shipping liquor or alcohol with the requirements, it has to the person you're shipping it with has to verify that the person receiving it's 21.
they should. They should.
Yeah. So, but that's another story for another day.
Definitely. All right. So moving on here, let's get to the meat and potatoes of tonight's session, and let's do our quarterback carousel. You know, since we got a week off of football while we wait for the Super Bowl, I just thought this would be a cool segment to do. It's kind of one of these rare years here where you're hearing starting caliber quarterbacks on the move, and you know, really not just like starting quarterbacks, but you know, when you hear a name like Deshaun Watson, who's like a fucking generational talent, you know, super young in his career, you know, possibly being out there, it's a big deal. And then you know, we talked about it a little bit already that, you know, some of these dominoes could fall and have a huge chain reaction where we could see quarterback movement this year unlike we've ever seen, like at least in recent memory in the NFL, maybe ever. I mean, it's just insane. And so we can skin this cat a couple of different ways. I thought what we could do is just kind of start by going down the list of teams and just kind of do a quick yes or no of are they a team that is in or out of having a quarterback move this year. And then from there, we could kind of like whittle it down and then start talking about like the big names. Okay, what happens with Watson? What happens with Stafford? What happens with Wentz? What happens, and how does that kind of like roll down the line? And then, maybe as it goes, I'm sure there'll be like 15 tangents, and then we'll kind of like try to, circle it all back and sum it up. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so I've got a list in front of me, and it is sorted by, looks like NFC teams and then AFC teams alphabetically. Uh, Arizona Cardinals, first team on the list. They've got Kyler Murray at quarterback. I'm just going to say no, they are not in play for the quarterback carousel this year.
I
Um,
agreed. There's no way they're in play for the quarterback carousel this year.
okay. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan. There has been some talk about it. I put no on my list because I think more than likely he stays put. Uh, he's one of these guys that, unless he's part of a package deal, I think he's more valuable to Atlanta than he is anywhere else because he's like at the very end of the rope already. And so I don't know how attractive that is for another team. But what do you think?
I think there's a possibility they could move on from him, but most likely I don't think they will. But I do have them as a team that could be looking for a new quarterback this year.
Okay, so they're at least a maybe then. They're one that will probably come up as we're talking out some of these scenarios. Next up, I got the Carolina Panthers. They've got Teddy Bridgewater. I've obviously, talked about him in a package deal for Stafford. Uh, you know, I think we got to say they are in play, unless you disagree.
I agree. I think they are definitely in play for a quarterback this year. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
yeah. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. They clearly are in play because they made public that they're going to aggressively go after Watson. So yeah, they're definitely in play.
yeah, I think that they're trying to look for a way to move on from Bridgewater. Bridgewater didn't perform like they thought he would, and I don't think he's as good a fit as they thought he would have been for Matt Rule's offense. So I think they're definitely looking to move on from him. Who where, what, who knows, but it's a definite. I see them as one of the teams that will have a new quarterback. Not could, will have a new
Okay,
quarterback in
whether
2021.
whether they trade for it or draft it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next up, we got the Chicago Bears. Trubisky's out, as far as I know. He's a free agent, so that has them sitting with Foles. I'm going to say yes, they are in play, at
I
least to be kicking tires and making calls and seeing if something happens.
I have them as definitely in play. From what I'm hearing from Chicago is they're going to move on from Foles as
Okay.
well. So they're one of my teams that will have a new quarterback coming into 2021.
Yeah, and see, this one's a tricky one for me because, like I was saying, I was looking at Spotrac earlier, and they show Foles having a 2021 salary of just 4 million. But because of the way they structured his contract and his signing bonus and whatnot, if they cut him, it's a $14.3 million dead cap hit, which it just kind of seems like when you like weigh that out, it's almost like shit. Even if you go and get a quarterback, you probably hang on to him to be your backup because you're better off hanging on to him and paying that 4 million than taking the 14 million kick in the nuts. But you know, if you need a clean slate so that he's not, maybe he's not the guy you want in your rookie's ear or in the guy that you trade for's ear, then I get it. There could be other reasons for making a move, but yeah, they definitely want a new starter for sure.
Yeah, definitely one new starter. Plus one of the things with Pace and Nagy up there is they're they're coming into a year a lot like Quinn and Patricia came into this past year, where it's desperation mode for them. They got to do something,
Yeah,
or both of them are going to be gone.
that's true. Yeah, the seats are getting hot. Okay, so next up we got the Dallas Cowboys. All signs are pointing to Dak Prescott, at least getting franchised again. Maybe he gets a long-term deal. I put them in play because, my opinion is if they didn't sign him to a long-term deal last year, there's something going on where maybe they think they can get somebody better. So I think that even if it's an outside shot, I think that they're somehow involved in what's going to be happening.
Yeah, Dallas is involved somehow. Because of the fact that they couldn't come to an agreement last year, they've been lowballing Dak. I believe they were like only a couple million away from a deal. Like I think it was like a year. Like they had to give him a fifth year, and they only wanted to give him a fourth year, something like that. And with they didn't want to commit to that fifth year. That tells me that something's going on there. I actually am hearing some rumors about them going hard after Stafford. Um,
He's a Texas boy, man. I could see that. I kind of thought the same thing where, Jerry Jones has a soft spot in his heart for those Texas kids, man. And he could be thinking, hey, let's bring him in. But it scares the shit out of me because would that mean there's going to be like they franchise Dak and then he works a long-term deal with Detroit and we get him like in return to that? That kind of makes me nervous because I'm hot and cold on Dak. I just think you're going to have to pay out the ass to make that deal happen. And I'm just not sure that that's the right move for the Lions with everything they got going on right now. But I don't know. What do you think, man?
well, I don't think Dak would even get coming off the injury. I don't think he would even get close to what the franchise tag would be in free agency. So I don't see Dallas franchise tagging him. They have Dalton, which I think they think can step in if need be. I'm hearing the other thing I'm hearing with Dallas is a lot of rumors of them packaging Zeke and Pick for Watson.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke, my opinion is Zeke is already on the way down,
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
has a both.
every year he looks a little bigger and a little bigger. And this year, whether it was them not using him right or, whatever the case may be, I don't know, dude. I'm just not as sold on Zeke as being a bell cow running back anymore. And I think we saw it even at the end of the year. He was splitting a lot of carries with Tony Pollard. And so it's like, geez, man, what is going on there?
Yeah, I think Jerry down there regrets giving the deal to Zeke before he extended Dak. I
Yeah.
think if he could go back and do it again, he would have done the reverse.
Yeah, he had him out of line, and you should know better. Nowadays, everybody knows that the shelf life for a running back is way, way short. And, you know, yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that. All right, so next up, we got the Detroit Lions with Matthew Stafford. Obviously, he's in play.
Yeah, he's in play. They're definitely going to trade him. The best fit to trade him honestly is to Indianapolis. If Detroit trades him to Indianapolis, first of all, he's out of the conference, so you wouldn't see him till if you make it to the Super Bowl, which we all know the fucking Lions won't make it to the Super Bowl in our lifetime. So um, that's that. But Indianapolis would instantly become basically any of the teams I have as possible targets, with the exception of Denver. That team would instantly become either the favorite or one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl from that conference. I had
Yeah,
Indy, San Francisco. I mean, even hell, Chicago is a dark horse candidate to try to trade for Stafford. All those teams would be possible Super Bowl representatives.
yeah, and we'll talk more about Stafford in a little bit and all the different angles. But yeah, I think that uh, from the early ones that I've heard, I do like Indy the most in terms of it being good for him and being good for us. Because as much as I've bashed Stafford, I've said a lot that we need a parting of the ways. it would be good for him and it would be good for us. I do want him to have some success in his career. It's not like I'm a diehard piece of shit where I'm just like, he sucks. He needs to go down. It's like, no, I want him to end up in a place where he can have a good, productive career. It's just not going to end up being here. So,
Yeah.
okay, next up we got Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Up until a few days ago, I thought he was in play. Right now, I'm going to say no because it looks like that cooled down really fast. What do you think, though?
I think Aaron Rodgers is definitely in play coming into the offseason. His comments were either extend me or it was a message show, extend me, rework my contract, give me more money. But I mean, if you look at it, last year they drafted his replacement.
Yep.
Which was a terrible pick because the guy couldn't even fucking become the backup quarterback on the team. And his comments after the game were a direct message to San Francisco or the Rams, stuff like that. Come and get me because from what I'm hearing about it is that basically there's a lot of smoke and a lot of fire there. He can't stand LaFleur. He can't stand the organization. The organization doesn't support him, and he wants out.
All right. Well, let me make it a yes. I just, the way it cooled down so fast, I thought maybe they were making amends. And it's tough because with a guy like him, you wonder, is he thinking, I'm on the best team I'm going to be on. If they trade me, it could get worse. But yeah, I mean, the writing is on the wall with frickin' what's his face Love that they drafted last year. The clock is ticking.
Yeah. Well, like if you look at it, say they trade him to the Rams instantly become the favorite to
They
win the
do.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, you're right. And yeah, so we got to keep him in there. We definitely got to talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, I guess look at it the other way. What if they traded him to Houston and they got Watson?
Yeah. I mean,
Rodgers loses that one.
not really.
I think Houston's got a lot of shit they got to figure out.
Houston has a lot of shit they got to figure out, but I think trading him to Houston, with if Culley is a decent coach at all, Houston still is a 8 to 10 win team.
I mean, it's just such a huge jump when you consider that they had Watson all year and they only won fucking 4 games or whatever it was.
Right, but if you look at Watson's stats this year, Watson had the third or fourth best stats overall for a quarterback.
Yeah.
That defense was a sieve. That defense allowed like 40 points a game.
But that's what I'm saying is that they got to fix that for Rodgers to be successful down there. He's not going to fix the defense.
Right, but I think the problem with that team was coaching.
Okay.
And the problem with, like, even coming into the season, they shouldn't have come into the season with Bill O'Brien as their coach. We talked about that since week 1 until they finally fired him. And I think that team has pieces there. It's just the coaching, and once it started snowballing, the team kind of gave up. I started talking about it like week 4, I think it was 3 or 4, where it looked like the team was just giving up. They didn't have that fight because of Bill O'Brien.
All right. Well, let's keep going here. So next up, I got the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to say they're definitely in play. There's a clear rift with Jared Goff and Sean McVay. And it's tough because the cap implications are by far and away the worst for them if they moved away from Goff. I don't know how that would work, but we'll talk that out, I guess, when we come back to it.
Yeah. So with Goff, there's a clear rift between him and McVay, and I don't have the direct quote, but Les Snead said something along the lines of basically exactly what Rodgers said, where the future of the team of Goff is a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So
I heard that. Yeah, he made comments that he's our quarterback right now, But then I also heard that, somebody saying it's going to be an open quarterback competition because they like what they saw in Wofford. And yeah, yeah, I think that if they can find a way to trade him and make it work with the cap, it's probably going to happen.
So what I'm hearing with the cap hit for um, Goff is if they cut him, it's like a $61 million
Oh, it's
cap hit.
huge. Yeah, yeah. Like I
If
was looking at it earlier. Yeah, if they cut him at 65.5 million.
yeah, and but if they trade him, that cap hit doesn't happen.
Yeah, see, that's the part that I got to get a better understanding of because and maybe it's old rules, but I thought the rules used to be whether you cut him or trade him, that dead cap number sticks with the team. But that obviously changed because all these articles I've been reading about Wentz and some of these other guys, they do talk about a clear differentiation of whether he's cut or traded. And so I'm missing a piece of the pie of how that comes together.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one. I'm looking for the direct quote because where is it here? So one of the things he said was moving on from Jared Goff, the money we've invested, that isn't easy to overcome, but anything can be done in a cap-based system.
Hmm. Okay.
I was looking for the mystery quote, but I mean, just saying that is like, and we're probably moving on.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to that whole where there's a will, there's a way.
Or it's too early to speculate on Goff. Here's what he said: Jared Goff is a Ram at this moment.
Yep.
It's way too early to speculate the future. That's a beautiful mystery.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't sound good. Or it sounds good for, maybe a team that needs a quarterback. He's better than what they could get. You never know. There could
Yeah,
be a win-win in there somewhere.
could
Okay,
be.
so next up we've got the Minnesota Vikings with Kirk Cousins. Uh, you know, for all the hate that you hear with him and Zimmer, I actually put him as a no because they extended his ass. So I gotta believe that they're gonna find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I have Minnesota as one of my few no's.
Okay. All right, then next up we got the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees. This all hinges on Brees. I put him as a yes. We can have it as a maybe. I think if, this is basically, it's if Brees retires, they could be in play. I don't know, maybe not with all the cap issues they have. Um, I mean, they got to do something at quarterback. What do you think, man?
Well, first of all, Breeze is retiring,
What was it? It
so
wasn't announced today.
it's not announced, but Breeze is retiring.
Okay.
I I strongly feel that Breeze is retiring. I'll be shocked if he comes back for another season, and so that puts the Saints into the yes category for me.
Okay. Next up, we got the New York Giants with Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. I'm putting them as a no because I'm hearing that they freaking love that guy. And I think that, I got to believe that they know they'd have to freaking move a mountain to get a guy like Watson or do something crazy. It's just not going to happen. I think they'd rather kick the tire, or not kick the tires, but, keep going the course with Daniel Jones.
I have them as a maybe. Um, yeah, they appear to love Daniel Jones, but I'm also hearing they're kicking the tires on Watson, which she'd be dumb not to. But I something tells me that they might do something.
They might make a
If
call, see what they can do.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll put them as a maybe. Next up, I've got Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's an obvious yes at this point.
I think it's a yes. I think they hired the reason why they hired the coach they did was because they want to make Wentz work, but they could easily move on from him because he's obviously not the quarterback they thought he was.
Yeah. Okay, next up we got the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I
I
have
think
them
it's
as a
obvious that they're in play.
they're in play. Plus, this is the year where they kind of have an out in Garoppolo's contract where they could get rid of him for like a minimal cap hit.
Okay. Yeah, they're definitely in play. I mean, if this rumor I heard about them going after Stafford's true, they're definitely in play.
Yeah,
Okay, so next up we got the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson. I'm going to say no, they are not in play.
I'm gonna say no as well, but the caveat to that is I heard rumors that they contacted Houston about Watson.
Hey, we'll give you Russ. We'll take him. We'll swap
Yeah,
him straight up.
but they're a no for me. They're not
Yeah.
moving on from Russ.
All right, and then Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady. We talked about it earlier. Unless he wins the Super Bowl and retires, I think they're a no because he's been talking a lot about coming back for one more year.
I agree. They're a no unless something crazy happens. They're a no. They have Brady under contract for another year. Brady's not going to retire unless he decides to after retire after winning the Super Bowl.
Okay, so the last team in the NFC is the Washington football team, whether it's Alex Smith or Heineke, however you say his name. I'm just putting them as a yes. There's way too much uncertainty there. They're going to be looking for a quarterback.
They're a yes for me as well.
Okay. Moving over to the AFC, we got the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. I'm going to say no, but I have heard that some people are saying they should be thinking about it because the clear passing deficiency with Lamar. What do you think?
I have them as a no, especially with the fact that I'm hearing their what's his face? I can't remember their GM's name, but he's been talking about extending Lamar this offseason.
Hmm.
So they're a no.
Okay. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. That's pretty much an easy no, I think.
Yeah, that's an easy no.
Next up, Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow. I'm going to say that's a no as well. What do you think there?
That's a no. They got a winner in Burrow. They're gonna keep him.
Yeah. Next up, I got the Cleveland Browns with Baker Mayfield. I've got it as a no. I don't think that they're totally set on Baker, but I'm putting it as a no. What do you think?
I have it as a maybe.
Okay.
I agree. I don't think they're totally set on Baker, and I've heard rumors that they want to go after Rodgers.
Oh, shit. That'd be intense.
Like package OBJ and Baker and a pick or two for Rodgers.
Wow. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we got Denver with Drew Lock. I've got them as a yes. You've been talking about Denver, wanting to go after Stafford. So,
I have them as a yes. While I don't think they'll completely move on from Locke, I think they need to give him time to mature, and I think they realize that. So they need a veteran like a Fitzpatrick or a Stafford to come in where Locke can sit behind him and just kind of mature a little bit.
gotcha. Okay. Next up, we've got Houston, which with Deshaun Watson, yeah, I think they're in play whether they like it or not.
Yeah, they're a yes. Watson wants out,
Yeah.
and they're going to move on from him.
Okay. Indianapolis with Jacob Eason is who I've got them listed at quarterback now that Philip Rivers is retired. I think it's pretty obvious they are in play.
See, I didn't even have them as having a quarterback signed for next season, so you're better off than me.
Oh, well, they drafted Eason last year, so I'm assuming they still got him, but you never know.
Yeah, I from what I was reading, and maybe it was just I drew the assumption and forgot about Eason, but yeah, they're a clear yes, especially like they need a quarterback.
Oh yeah. Next, I got Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew. Um, this is a tough one because I think everybody's assuming they're going to go after Trevor Lawrence with that number one pick. I put them as yes, they're in play, at least to have a discussion about it. But more likely than not, they're probably a no because they're going to do the Trevor Lawrence route. But what do you think about that one?
Well, see, this is the thing because if you listen to Urban Meyer prior to signing with Jacksonville, he had openly talked about how Deshaun Watson was the prospect that got away.
Yeah, so they got to be in play. They're
And
at least for an outside chance where they said,
and
"Hey, we'll give you the number one pick and whatever else we can give you."
well, see, that's the thing is Schefter, who doesn't really speculate, kind of put out a speculation. What if Watson was traded to Jacksonville for the number one pick?
Yeah, because then if you're Houston, you're saying, "Well, we're getting Trevor Lawrence. How much else do
Yeah,
we need?" They're still probably going to get next year's first round pick too. I don't think it's just going to be the number one pick and that's it.
yeah. And if I was Jacksonville, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too. And I guess I looked at it as if I'm Urban Meyer and I'm starting off in the NFL. Do I want to start off fresh with a rookie quarterback? I get it. He's like one of the highest rated quarterbacks in a long time. Or do I want to make a move? And, I even looked at it as could they go after Stafford? Because now you got a seasoned veteran, above average quarterback that can at least stabilize your offense. And honestly, I think Stafford would light it up with all the weapons they have on that offense. And then it could let them focus on build the defense so that this team can get to winning games sooner than you might have to wait with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also with a rookie quarterback, even though he's probably the best prospect to come into the league since what Andrew Luck, even before that, maybe even John Elway. Like, I mean, that's how can't miss he Trevor Lawrence is being talked about. Even with that, there's still that little bit of doubt because it doesn't
Yep.
always translate. You have these proven commodities, Stafford, possibly Rodgers, you have Deshaun, you have other guys that have proven that they can play in the NFL and at least play above average quarterback play, and you don't know what you're necessarily getting with a draft pick. So that's why I have them as a yes.
Okay. Next up, I got the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. That's a hard no.
Yeah, that's a no.
And then we got the Las Vegas Raiders with Derek Carr. I put them as a yes. Carr had a great year, but man, that things are just not like hunky dory with him and Gruden. I mean, there's always some kind of beef going on there.
Exactly. I have them as a yes as well. There's something wrong with that relationship between coach and quarterback that I can't place my finger on, but there's something wrong there.
Yeah, it maybe it's in the low probability camp, but there's something going on. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert. I put that as a no. There's just way too much promise with that guy. They're all behind him, I think, at this point.
Yeah, they're right behind them, and um yeah, they're a no. Like I don't think they're even
It's
gonna
it's a
attempt it.
it's a super slim chance that they would look at something super
Yeah,
slim.
exactly.
Next up is the Miami Dolphins with Tua. I'll let you say his last name.
Tunga Viola. Tunga Viola.
That's why I had you say it, not me. And they're clearly in this. You started the whole thing a couple weeks ago talking about them making the trade, so I got them as a yes.
Yeah, I have them as a definite yes. I'm I'm hearing a lot of things of two first round picks and Tua for Watson.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's enough for Houston, to be honest. because I don't think we saw enough of Tua. Man, I don't know. I just don't think that that's enough if you're Houston, my opinion.
And and the funny thing about it is one of the first round picks or both of them, if it's one this year and
Is
one
from
next year,
Houston? Yeah.
they would be Houston's first round picks.
Just getting them back. Yeah, just
So it'd
getting
be
them back.
Houston would be drafting from Miami via Houston or whatever
Yeah,
Houston
yeah,
basically traded their pick to themselves, which is just so fucked up as it is. But yeah, there's a strong possibility that they don't think that they're giving up on Tua.
yeah. I agree. Okay, so we got the New England Patriots. I put Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. I mean, I'm assuming they don't have Cam anymore, and I heard what's his face, their like forever backup as a free agent. I thought I heard. Um, I forget
Hoyer,
his name from Michigan State. Yeah, Hoyer.
Hoyer.
And so, I'm sure that they're in the mix. And honestly, I've got an interesting one to run by you, which we'll get to in a little bit. Um, I'm assuming you agree with that they're in play.
Yeah, they're definitely in play.
Okay, then we got the New York Jets with Sam Darnold. I think they are also in play. They've been linked to Houston already. Um,
Yeah,
After that, we got Roethlisberger with the Steelers. I put him as a no, but I'm starting to wonder because it seems like the team maybe is wanting him to move on.
it's not that the team is wanting. Well, the best scenario for Pittsburgh is Ben Roethlisberger retires. Next year his cap hit is like
It's
41 and a
insane.
half
I
million.
heard that. Yeah.
And I'm hearing basically he indicated he wants to come back and the team said, "Well, we can't bring you back at 41 million, so we got to rework something."
Yeah, and I heard that he was willing to take a cut. So, maybe he'll be back, but yeah, they've got a lot of ground that they got to cover to meet in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. I have them as a maybe.
Okay, I'll switch them to a maybe. Sorry, pouring the big dog here. You got to be careful, and it's empty now. So, okay, last but not least, I've got the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill. I am gonna say that they are a no. What do you think?
I agree. Especially how Tannehill's playing there. There's no way. There's no way in hell they're moving on from him.
He's a top tier quarterback in Tennessee. I mean,
Yeah,
it's solid, man. That's like the perfect scenario for him. Okay, so just going back through the list here. I'll just tell you, we've got 10 no's. So we're saying basically 22 teams are in play, or at least maybes. We got 4 maybes. So 18 definitely in, 4 maybes. And I guess let's just kind of, now that we got it whittled down, let's look at some of these teams. With the Atlanta Falcons, going back to the top here, with Matt Ryan, you know, like I was saying, I'm just not sure. Like where could he go? He's worth way more to Atlanta than he is some other team.
and I agree with that fact, but I think something's telling me that with the new coach and the new system, that they're kind of looking at moving on from Ryan. I don't know. It'd be hard. It'd be a hard contract to move. It'd be a hard pill to swallow with this cap hit. But it's just I've been hearing too much rumblings that they've all year that next year they might have a new quarterback for me to say to put them in the no category.
Yeah, and so I guess let me just take a look at the contract real quick. So he signed a 5-year, $150 million deal. Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 years left on this thing. It'd be a 40 million cap hit if they cut him. Oh no, no, sorry, more than that. A $49 million dead cap hit. If they did it next year, it's 26 and a half. And maybe there's like the trade thing where you're talking about where they can get it down lower. But shit, man. I mean, is another team going to want to take on his contract at his age of his career? I'm not seeing it, man.
What
I,
I
I'm
I
just saying it's
I
slim. I
agree.
guess let's I
I
guess
agree.
let's look at some of the teams. Like where do we think he could end up going to? Carolina, they're going to go for a younger guy. Chicago, man, he could be like a consolation prize for Chicago potentially. That'd actually be a
He
really good spot for him, I think.
he could go to Chicago. He could possibly go to New England.
Yeah, oh,
And
dude, yeah. He- If Belichick wants to go with a guy that old, which I mean, he just ran it with Cam for a year, so why the heck not?
I
And and
he could go to the Rams.
I think that Matt Ryan in New England would be able to get him back to that Tom Brady type offense very easily, which they
Yeah.
clearly need to get back to that. I'm just going to make a little note here. You
And
think the
another team,
Rams?
I think he could go to the Rams. I also think he could go to the 49ers.
Yeah, because of the Shanahan connection.
Yeah, and if you look, his MVP year was under Shanahan.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Um, Anything else there?
Consolation prize for the Colts. Like, I mean, the Colts are a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. And I think they have a decent amount of cap space.
Yeah, they could, if they don't get their guy, yeah, I could see them. Maybe it's like a late move. They go after Matt Ryan when the dust settles if they didn't get the guy that they totally wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a good fit there with Frank Reich. Okay. Okay, so then next up we got Carolina, and so they're a buyer, not so much a seller.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess let's talk about Atlanta. I mean, going back to them, would they be a buyer for? I don't see them being in the Watson mix. I mean, I've not heard a peep about them. But could they be in the mix for a guy like Stafford or even a guy like Wentz?
I don't think so. Um, I think they're more, and I forget, let me look up. I forgot to check it because they have a high-ish pick.
Okay.
They have the number 4 pick. You figure probably 2 of the quarterbacks are going to go before them. Um, so I mean, you could get Trey Lance or what's his face from BYU there at the 4th pick and run it back and start with the rookie. I would see them more
As a
going after
seller.
someone in the draft than to um, get one of the older guys because I think they want to get younger at the position.
Yeah, so we're saying that they want to sell Matt Ryan and they want to go after a rookie.
Yeah,
Okay. So then Carolina, I think that they're the opposite. I think they are a buyer in Bridgewater. They're selling him as like a byproduct of their desire to buy a guy like Watson.
yeah, exactly. Either Watson or get in on the Safford. They're at at the 8th pick in the draft. I don't think they'll be able to draft a quarterback there. I think even coming back in the second round, those guys like Atlanta, Philly before them, the Lions before them.
Yeah.
I mean, you have too many teams that need quarterbacks that wouldn't be able to get one in the second round that would be of any value for them.
So have you heard anything about them linked to Stafford yet?
I had seen an article. I hadn't read it, but I had just seen. I just recently saw an article about
Maybe.
it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next up, we got the Chicago Bears. I think that they are buyers. They
Yes,
are. I mean, they got nothing to sell. I mean, Foles could be sold as a fire sale, basically. But I don't know that. Like, can they? Are so they're a buyer primarily of Stafford, is what we're saying. I don't
yeah.
think they got a shot in hell at getting Watson.
Who are we talking about again?
Chicago.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
So
maybe they add frickin' Khalil Mack to the mix or something, but then you're going
I
back to
don't
what Houston
see
want him.
I don't see the Lions trading Stafford in division.
Oh, highly unlikely. Highly
Yeah.
unlikely.
I think I think they're more of maybe possibly even go after Ryan, uh, as opposed to Stafford. I hear they're in the mix for Watson, but I don't think Watson would trade his or would waive his no trade clause to go to Chicago, seeing as though Chicago didn't even talk to him before the draft, and with that they picked Trubisky over him.
Okay. So, yeah, so maybe they're like a dark horse to go after Matt Ryan. Maybe they go after Wentz.
Possibly, possibly Wentz, but yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because it'd be slim chance that Detroit would ship Stafford off to them. And if they don't have enough to get Watson, or it's a matter of they'd have to give up a guy like Khalil Mack to do it, which if I'm
Mhm.
Chicago, I would probably do it because Watson is freaking phenomenal, but it's a hard move to make, you know, when you're talking players of that caliber. Would Houston want Khalil Mack? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't I don't think Chicago will move on from Khalil Mack because I mean, they gave up a first round pick for him, and then
They gave up, I think, a couple of first round picks
yeah,
for him
I mean, there's just too much that they gave up
embedded in
for.
that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess the other part here is so for Chicago, because, like you can say Atlanta has a quarterback and Carolina has a quarterback. Chicago, you could argue Foles is really just not a good starting caliber quarterback. If they don't land where they want on the carousel, who's in free agency? Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, like Cam Newton. I don't think they go after Cam Newton. I mean, obviously they're not going to go back after Mitch Trubisky if they're letting him walk. Um, I don't know, man.
Possibly
I don't think.
Dak, possibly Alex Smith.
Yeah, but if Alex Smith's coming back, I got to believe he's coming back to Washington. And then Dak,
Yeah.
that's getting complicated. It's like, okay, so what is Dallas going to get in return?
What would Dallas have to get in return? I mean, they're probably not going to re-sign Dak. I don't think they are. They're not going to be able to. I don't think they're going to franchise tag him again because I think on the open market they're going to be like, okay, you want to try free agency? Try free agency. You're going to get less money.
I think people are going to want Dak, dude. He was on fire before he got hurt.
I mean,
And this isn't seen as like one of these like, career risking ending injuries. This is like everything I've heard is like this is like a pretty clean, he's coming back at full health, barring something crazy. And I know it was a severe injury, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like a knee thing where it's like sometimes the knee just doesn't come back.
yeah.
So I don't know. I think Dak's going to get some money somewhere. But yeah, it's an option. And they're actually next. I got Dallas next to talk about Dak because, like you were saying, maybe they go after Stafford.
Yeah, I could see them going after Stafford. I could see them going after um
You talked about Zeke in the mix for Watson.
yeah.
I don't know. I think their options are pretty limited. Otherwise, I think like you're saying, they got Dalton and they would probably bring Dak back if they can get him at the right price, or I don't know. It's such a messed up relationship with them and Dak, man.
Yeah. It
I
is.
guess
Like
I'm just paranoid about Dak coming to Detroit and the Lions having to pay him 40 million a year because we're like, somebody's going to pay the guy. But so are they more of a seller of Dak or a buyer? I mean, it seems like they're more of a seller of Dak.
I think they're more of a buyer because they can't really sell Dak because he's not under contract.
Yeah, but they can franchise him and then do it.
Well, no, they would have to franchise him, sign him to a long-term deal, then trade him. You can't trade him on the franchise tag.
Yeah, but you can franchise him and then negotiate the long-term deal and then consummate the trade. Like you can be talking to a team and say, you know, like we're going to work out the contract, but we obviously got to do it, but we want to have like basically a handshake deal that we're going to trade him, and then everything will like kind of happen in lockstep that way.
Yeah. Like I mean, it's complicated.
Okay. All right. So here's an interesting one, and I'm just thinking about this now. Is And we're probably going to throw this team out there a number of times tonight. I know I'm going to with at least one other guy, but Dak to New England, I think would fit in very well for what they want to do. I think they need to get him some weapons, but he's a very capable passer. He's
Hmm.
actually a pretty good runner, but really, I'm looking more at the McDaniels short pass, get the ball out of there. I think he'd fit in really well in New England, and they're getting out of salary cap hell where they could, even if they had to pay some money for Dak, they could get him. It's just a matter of, for Belichick, it would have to be a value. So it'd have to be like you're saying, where basically Jerry Jones kind of plays chicken with him and it's like, go ahead and see what you can get, or, we're not going to like, get a whole bunch in return for you, so we're not going to play hard. Otherwise Belichick would be like, no, I'd rather take my picks and do what I can do, or hang on to my guys, hang on to my money.
Hmm.
I would kind of like to see him end up in New England now that I'm thinking about it. I think it'd be really good for him, and it'd be really good for New England.
They do. They have a whole shitload of cap space.
Yeah, New England is ready to like frickin' totally revamp the thing, man.
Wow. I
And
didn't
if
realize.
you had to give big money to Dak, they're one of the few teams that could do it. But I know you don't think that. And you might be right. These injuries, they're a tricky thing.
That's that's an interesting one. They have like no dead cap hit either next year. Or their 2021 dead cap hit is less than $1 million.
Yeah, that means they know what they're doing. I mean, the alternative is, I guess it's like you're saying, maybe Dak to Chicago. You know, where else could Dak end up if he's not in Dallas? I don't
That's
think
true.
it's New Orleans. I don't think they can afford it.
That's an interesting one. I hadn't thought of
Him to the Pats.
him to the Pats.
I mean, I'd say Dak to Green Bay, but Rodgers isn't going to go play for McCarthy again. That's not going to happen.
True. There's no way that's happened.
Dak to frickin' Washington. That I would actually get excited about too.
That's another good one. I don't know if Washington has the cap space though.
Let's check it out. Let's just see what they got.
I just looked up New Orleans cap salary cap next year, and I was about 40 million off on how much. Oh wow, Washington has 43 million.
They could get a guy like Dak. I mean, we don't know how many holes they have as to what's going into that number, but I think that they could be in play for a quarterback like that.
Yeah.
So if not
So
Washington, let me look at some of my other teams here. I just can't see him going to Denver. I don't think that. I think like you're saying, Denver more wants to try to get a guy like Fitzpatrick that's going to be like a 1 year mentor or something like that. Maybe they're like in play to get frickin' Bridgewater for a year while they, tell Locke, hey, get your shit together. I mean, Dak to Indy, man. Indy could be after anybody. It's like, what order do the guys go in? It's like very clearly Watson's the top dog. And then it seems like Stafford was the number two guy. But if these dominoes fall and Dak's in play, would you rather have Dak or Stafford? I don't know, man. It's crazy. Dak is way younger. I don't know. I might actually prefer to have Dak over Stafford. If you're Indy, then you're looking at him. Jacksonville, I don't think you would trade for Dak. I wouldn't put them in it. The
hmm,
Raiders, it's tough with Derek Carr. Like what could you do there? I wouldn't, you know, I don't think Dallas would want Derek Carr. Miami, I don't think I don't see it there. And then with the Jets, I don't really see that either. I mean, so I think Dak to it's either the Patriots, Washington, or Chicago, or possibly Indy. I think that's his list.
what about Denver?
See, that's what I guess I'm talking about is it depends on what's going on with Drew Lock. If they're wanting to do like a veteran mentor for Lock, then it doesn't really fit the bill. But if they're wanting to go longer term, then yeah, it could work. They would have to plan on shipping Lock off somewhere or just having him be a backup from here on out.
Yeah, but Denver only has 18 million.
That's not a lot, man.
Yeah, I just I I just can't believe the Saints. Like, I was looking at it. They're 104 million over over the projected cap.
How does that even happen?
And if if Breeze retires, that only saves them 14 million.
Yeah, they're fucked. They are fucked. All right. So next up we got Stafford. Let's talk about him. We're so biased when it comes to the Lions. It's hard to get a sense of what's going on here. Stafford, we are sellers of Stafford. I think we
Yes.
got to make that clear. We're not buying Watson. I mean, it'd be sweet if we could, but I don't think that's happening. So we're sellers of Stafford. Um, you know, it all just depends on what the team wants to do, man. Like I was talking about with that Carolina deal with Bridgewater. If they want to draft a quarterback, then you're talking purely trading him for picks. Kind of opens up the market a little bit more. Um, you know, yeah, I think Indy is linked as the preferred spot. It would also be, you're saying maybe Carolina. I would like that. That'd be fine. I don't think Chicago. I don't think Dallas. I don't think we could do anything with the Rams. I mean, I guess you hypothetically could, but then we'd be getting Goff in return. I don't know that that makes sense, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
But you also gotta remember that Holmes has that relationship already.
yeah, it's kind of like his pipeline.
Yeah. I have the I had five potential teams
Yeah, I
for
mean,
Stafford.
Washington could be in play for Stafford.
Yeah, I had Washington, I had the Rams, I had San Francisco, I had Indy, and I had the Broncos. Um, Currently San Francisco is the betting favorite to get him,
Okay.
but you're right. I am hearing that I did find that it was two second round picks and two third round picks was San Francisco's offer,
Okay.
but I'm hearing that somewhere around five teams have offered a minimum of a first round pick for him,
Yeah.
and it's just we're we're getting a quarterback. What I'm reading and hearing a lot more about is we're actually looking to trade up in the draft to draft Fields.
Because we don't think he's going to fall to 7.
Yeah, which I don't know if I like Fields.
Yeah, I got to watch a lot of tape on these quarterbacks, man. I know you've been telling me to stay away from that guy from BYU. Fields, just what I've heard has been inconsistent. He's had good
Yeah,
games, he's had bad games. That makes me nervous for a first round guy. You want a guy that's like rock solid coming out that high in the first round. I do like the Trey Lance guy you talk about just because of like the freaking raw talent and ability, but that's also sometimes asking for disaster. To me, it's just like unless we fall in love with one of these guys, I would want to do something where you get a quarterback in return, or like just hear me out on this. You just say fuck it, we're gonna sign Winston or Trubisky for a year and see what our options are after 2021 because this year is going to be a train wreck anyhow.
so I actually, as you might disagree with this, I actually like the prospect of Winston.
I mean, the dude, he can throw the freaking ball, man. I mean, he puts a lot of yards out there. He puts a lot of touchdowns up, but he just is a fucking turnover machine too. So,
Yeah. But I just there's there's something about Winston. Like it's I think he has good potential there and under the right coaching.
okay. All right, let's move on and let's talk about Green Bay for a minute. What do you think can happen with Rodgers here? You're saying Cleveland wants to go after him?
Cleveland as a potential, San Francisco and the Rams.
So we're saying that they're sellers, but it's like they're forced sellers.
Yeah,
They're not wanting to sell. They're kind of they're having their arm twisted on them. And so
yeah.
what were
I
those teams?
Cleveland, San Francisco, and the Rams. I From what I'm hearing and from what reporting I'm hearing is describe the situation in Green Bay as nuclear.
Okay.
And like when I forget who, it wasn't the GM, it might have been the president of the Packers said, "We're not stupid. Rodgers is our quarterback."
Yeah.
And a lot of people that that are in the know after he said that said, "Oh, you might have wanted to talk to your quarterback before you said something like that." Apparently, there was I forget which one, if it was Rappaport or if it was Schefter. Apparently, that he had put out a tweet talking about San Francisco being the most likely landing spot, and he didn't name the coach, but he got a text message from an NFL coach saying, "Well, definitely Rodgers isn't going to be in Green Bay next year."
Okay.
And that particular team, whatever team it was, wanted him and described and he's the one. It was the coach that described the situation as nuclear up there.
Gotcha. All
So
right.
it's one
So,
of those, there's smoke, there's fire.
yeah. So Cleveland, San Fran, Los Angeles Rams. You know, I mean, if it was the Rams, hypothetically, they could get Goff in return. I mean, for any of these teams, they could get a quarterback in return if they don't think Love is the guy. But they put a first round pick into him, so I got to believe they're going to try him. Um, okay.
It was more than a first round pick because didn't they trade back into the first round to get him, or was it just they traded up their first round pick? But they traded up to get him.
Yeah, I think they were in the first round and they moved up a couple spots, but I'm not 100% certain on that. I see, I don't I don't see a team like the Patriots going after Rodgers because it's not a value pick. That's not like a typical Belichick move. I mean,
It
it'd be
is.
fucking insane if they ended up with Rodgers after they had Brady for all these years, but I can't put them in there. I don't think Washington is a feasible spot for Rodgers. I think there's too many ways that he could just be like, "Fuck you, I'm going to retire." I don't see that happening. Same with Denver. I don't see him going to Denver. I mean, I could see him going to Indy. It's the same thing as Cleveland. You're shipping him to the other conference, and I think Indy would love that, man. And I was worried about this. I don't know if I was telling you about this. I was telling one of our other buddies that I'm nervous that uh, you know they would want Rodgers first and then Stafford second. If there's any chance in hell that Rodgers can break free from Green Bay, which hurts us. It hurts us for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. This is the. Let's see if I can. Of course, you're like my Skype's right over it, so I couldn't read the damn thing. All right. Let me try this again. Give me a second because I just had found the details and then but it was right over the exact details. The Skype was right over the exact details, and then I minimized, or I shrunk it down a little bit and couldn't read it. Okay, so they gave a first and fourth round selection to trade up with Miami from 30 to 26.
Yeah, that's not bad, man.
And Miami got that. So it was from Houston in the Laramie Tunsil deal.
Okay. All right, so next up I've got the Rams with Jared Goff. So I think that they are a seller, not necessarily a buyer. I
I
think
think they're both.
if they could get a guy like Rodgers.
I think that they're in the conversation for trying to trade for Stafford or Rodgers. But I think they definitely want to get out somehow of Goff.
Okay. Yeah, I think that they have limited options because of Goff and how freaking crazy his contract is.
Yeah, I think they also might have issues with salary cap.
Okay.
I'll double check that. For some reason, I was thinking they're going to come up to salary cap hell pretty soon.
Yeah, they're over. They're over by 1 million.
I see. I have them over by a lot more than that. I have them over by 27 million.
Okay. So right now, yeah, I'm just looking at the Rams wire. Over the cap has projected the cap to be set at 176 million, which is 1 million higher than the oh, never mind. I'm not reading good information here. Or I'm reading good information, just not reading it the right way.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so they're yeah, so they're likely they're they're like kind of like wanting to be in the quarterback carousel, but their hands are tied behind their backs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then it's the same thing with the Saints. Basically, their best case scenario is probably Breeze retiring and them rolling the dice with Taysom Hill for a year because I think he's under contract still.
He is.
And they're paying him like 10 million a year or something. So, you're not going to pay him 10 million a year and go out and pay another quarterback when you're 100 million over the cap.
Yeah, so Taysom Hill's cap hit next year is 16 million.
Mm, that's a lot. But maybe not if you're a starting quarterback.
He's the fifth, including Breeze, he's the fifth highest player on their team currently.
Okay.
Because it goes Breeze, Cam Jordan, Michael Thomas, Armstead, then Hill. And he's barely behind Armstead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's, yeah, just going back to it, it's the same. It's the Rams. They might want to be in the carousel, but they don't really have a solid play.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then we got the Giants with Daniel Jones. You had him as a maybe. Why don't you kind of talk that out with me? So they'd be buying up, and Daniel Jones would get sold in the process, is what you're saying.
Yeah, somehow, some way, it's just when I hear things coming out of the Giants, I don't see that confidence behind Daniel Jones.
So what would they have to? Who would they go after? Would they see? I don't think they would go after a guy like Stafford. I think that they would rather stick with Daniel Jones. So you're talking, it's like basically all or nothing for Watson. And if it's all or nothing for Watson, what do they got to do to get him? Trade Saquon. It's like all these teams we're talking about, it's like they got a stud running back that would go to Houston in the mix.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna drop them from the maybe list.
Put him to a no.
Yeah, put them to a no. The more for instance, this article, and it's more, it's like couple weeks ago. There is no doubt Daniel Jones is the New York Giants quarterback next season.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right. So yeah,
okay.
so let's
So
move him to
yeah,
a no.
Gettleman, we have complete confidence in him moving forward.
Okay, so next up is Philly. And for Philly, I've got them as sellers of Carson Wentz. I think we saw enough with Jalen Hurts that they could move on from Wentz. We know Wentz is clearly unhappy there after the way the season turned out. And I mean, it was just a bad deal all around, man. Wentz had these flashes of potential in the past, and everything just blew up in his face this year. And then the rookie came in and played well. Um, I think they're looking to sell him. No matter what they're saying about them having two, like high performing quarterbacks or whatever. That's just code for if you want him, you got to pay more to get him. It's all
Yeah.
messaging. That's the way I see it.
I see it too. I don't see them as buyers at all. I mean, they're already 650 million over the cap.
Yeah, yeah. I think they'd be smitten to roll the dice with Hurts. I think they're happy with what he showed them, and they're a team in transition. So yeah, they're not a buyer. They're just a seller. And now looking at their prospects to sell, this is the one that actually earlier got me the most excited about New England, which may sound a little crazy, but my thought was that Belichick, like I keep saying, he likes those kind of value picks, like those kind of like steals of a deal. And I think when you look at the quarterbacks that are out there, Watson, Stafford, maybe even Rodgers, as crazy as it sounds. And then you look at some of the free agents with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then, potentially 4 to 5 first round rookie quarterbacks out there. I think if Philly gets rid of Wentz, it's not going to be for as much as they want. And that's the kind of spot where Belichick comes in and thrives. It's like, okay, I'll throw you some picks. And everybody at the end of the day is going to be like, whoa, like what happened there? And this would be perfect. Now they're getting their quarterback. It's a reclamation project, but the Patriots, they could make that happen. And he would come in, and I think it'd be a seamless transition to, that old McDaniels Brady offense that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Like one of the problems with Philly being over the cap is apparently it's like a $60 million dead cap hit for getting rid of Wentz.
Yeah, so that was a weird one where I heard some of it depends on the timing of the move. If it happens within like 3 days of the new league year or after. And so that's what I want to find more about because that is definitely a factor. If they can't get rid of him because of the cap, then they're not really in play, and we got to take him off the list.
Yeah, and it's for some reason like it's listed as if it's after June 1st they move on from him, it's only a $44 million cap hit or dead
Okay.
cap hit. So I don't know, like I don't understand damn cap.
All right, so we'll put them in the maybe. It's all based on what happens with the cap.
Yeah, but I mean they're in cap hell currently.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess we got to name Indy because the connection to Frank Reich.
Yeah, that
That's
was one of the things I saw with them is or with Indy was that was the first option until you had all these other quarterbacks coming out. And then it's hard for me to see them going after Wentz when they can go after Stafford or they can go after Rodgers or they could go after
yeah, yeah.
anybody that's better than Wentz, which is like half the quarterbacks that are going to be available.
So then maybe Washington. It seems like Washington's going to be like a second tier buyer potentially,
Yeah.
where they're kind of getting the scraps. And I think Washington would love to take a chance on Wentz. It all depends. Honestly, it all depends on what's going on with Alex Smith. I think the ideal scenario for them is getting Alex Smith back. And if not, I don't know. Like you said, the Heineke guy played great. Maybe they sign him to a new contract, but yeah.
Yeah, so currently for 2021 for Indy, wow, they have a lot of cap space. They have almost 70 million.
Oh yeah, they got their pick of the litter as long as they can come up with the right package of picks and or players to give a team incentive. They've got all the cap space to play with, man. Like I tell you, what Indy has done with that team has been phenomenal. How well they've turned that team around, man.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I like Indy. If they even a decent quarterback, um,
They're
they're
competitive.
they're competitive. I told you I thought they were one of the scariest teams to play this year. If Philip Rivers that with that defense, if Philip Rivers could just play non-turnover football, I thought they could have made a run. I thought they would have had a chance at beating Kansas City too.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Um, okay, so next up we got San Fran, and we're saying that they're buyers for Stafford, most likely.
Most likely Stafford, possibly Rodgers.
Yeah, and maybe Jimmy G gets sold in the process.
Yeah, because I think with them, let me verify it, but I think it's only like it's less than a $3 million dead cap hit if they get rid of Jimmy G.
Yeah.
And they currently have, eh, they're kind of tight on the cap, but if they get rid of Jimmy G, I mean, that'll give them like 35 million for
I mean, I know they're in
available
the
cap space.
mix. There's a lot of reports of them being in the mix. And so I think that they think they can make the cap work.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm also hearing about San Francisco is they might be in the mix for Watson.
I don't know how they could pull it off, but you never know.
I've heard rumors of a couple first round picks, Jimmy G and Bosa.
If you got Bosa and some other stuff to go with it, I think you could at least have a conversation because Bosa's not a quarterback, but he is like a way hot commodity on defense.
Yeah, and that defense played pretty good with him out.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so now for Washington, they're the next guys up. Basically, we're saying they're a buyer if they can't re-sign Alex Smith because he retires or whatever happens. Um, but they are more than likely a second tier buyer because the big name guys probably aren't going to want to go to Washington.
Yeah, and I think well, I mean they have an up and coming roster. They have some skill positions. They have a good defense to
Yeah.
great. I was curious. I For some
I,
reason I think Alex Smith is under contract for 2021. He is.
oh,
So
yeah,
they
yeah.
have
So it's not re-signing him. It's just that if he doesn't retire.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't retire, they have him at 25 million.
Okay.
If he does retire, and that's where it gets iffy on it, because I don't know how retiring affects the dead cap hit, but it would be a 10 or $11 million dead cap hit
Okay.
possibly.
Gotcha. I'd love to see Stafford go to Washington.
Yeah, I think they were one of my dark horses for getting him.
I think he could do good there, to be honest. I think they have enough weapons on offense, and we know that their defense is like fucking dominant all of a sudden. Um, that could be a good fit for him. I mean, I think Indy's like the dream scenario for him, but Washington would be a good spot for him to land too.
Yeah, you know, but with the Lions and Stafford, I think the Lions are kind of going to talk to Stafford and figure out where he wants to go.
Yeah, and then send him to the shittiest team possible because we want to feel like we won.
No, I was saying it the other way. Like they're
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
I,
going to
I
do
know, I know. I'm
do
just
right
messing
by
with
him.
you. Yeah. Yeah, they want to try to accommodate him, but it's going to be, what are we going to get in return? Is it going to work for us? I- You know, I think that if we got a better deal somewhere else, we're going to take the better deal.
Possibly.
Okay, so Cleveland, you're saying they're maybe as a buyer because they want Aaron Rodgers.
Whoa, what's going on with my video? Is my video wigging out?
You got like a green flash on your screen. It could have something to do with your background picture. I don't know.
That's bugging the hell out of me. I'm gonna
T
go back to a
yeah,
normal
yeah,
background.
take off the background, man. Oh no, it's still doing it. Oh no, now it's good. Now it's good.
No, it's still doing it. What the?
I'm not seeing it on my end.
Okay. Anyways,
All right, so they're a buyer potentially for Rodgers. You're not hearing anything else though. You're not hearing about them swinging for Watson. I don't think they would go after Stafford when you got Baker Mayfield. They're. I think Stafford is better than Baker, but I don't think he's that much better that they would go and make some crazy move to try and get him.
yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I he'd be going after they'd be going after much else.
Okay, so then next up we got Denver, and they've got Drew Lock. They're not really selling Lock; they're wanting to buy something better. And you thought it was going to be Stafford, but you're now hearing that maybe they just want kind of like a mentor guy to groom Drew Lock for a year.
Yeah, like I don't. Denver's kind of difficult to piece together. Like they don't have much that they could really give up for Stafford or players like that. Like I did hear a lot in the beginning about them possibly going after Stafford, and I mean I'm hearing some here and there about it, but it's kind of faded a lot.
Okay. Yeah, and I've not heard really much of anything about it, so I was just kind of going off of what you had heard. Um, let's see, where would they be for 2021 with the cap?
If I remember correctly, they had a lot of space.
They're in a good spot, you think?
Yeah.
So I'm showing an estimated 18.5 million. I mean, it's not horrible. Okay, so then next up we've got Houston. They are sellers at this point, and they are forced sellers.
Yeah, they're big time force sellers.
So I've
Um,
I've heard that basically Miami and the New York Jets are the two teams that actually have a chance at this because of all the picks that they have, and that no other teams come even close to being able to do a deal because, basically they're saying the Jets could do two first rounds this year and two first rounds next year. And then you know what Miami's picks are. I don't know what they are, but they got a fuckload of picks too. So
Yeah, I'm also Jacksonville. I think has a bunch of first round picks.
well, yeah, and you said Jacksonville could kind of be a dark horse because they got the number one overall pick.
Yeah, so Jacksonville has the number 1 and the number 25 pick this year,
Okay.
and that was from the Ramsey trade. They have Minnesota's second round pick.
Yeah. And then I think the lower tier options are kind of like the ones that we talked about, like Carolina. McCaffrey would be in the mix. Dallas, Zeke would be in the mix. The Giants, Saquon would be in the mix. I think those are less desirable for Houston. I think it really boils down to probably the Jets or the Dolphins, maybe Jacksonville. I mean, if
Yeah.
man, Jacksonville is a serious dark horse.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about it was Schefter doesn't throw out those hypotheticals.
Yeah,
And he threw it out there and then was like, just the fun hypothetical afterwards. And it's like, but you don't normally do that.
okay. So then next up we got Indy. They're obviously a buyer. There's links to Stafford. They'd probably prefer to get Rodgers if they could. Could you see them, and maybe you said this already, could you see them buying a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, where San Fran wants to get rid of him, and maybe they're not able to get Wentz or any of these other guys, and so they're like, Garoppolo's better than Eason.
Maybe, like, that be, I'd be hard pressed to see that. I think they would try to
What
before.
what about Goff? Do you
That's
think
what
if they couldn't get any of these guys, they'd go after Goff? Because they got the cap space to take on that contract.
exactly. I it occurred to me as I was saying it, and I was right before you asked. I was about to say maybe Goff.
I think Sean McVay should be buddy buddy with everybody in Indy as much as he can be right now.
Well, because that's the thing about it. I think Goff might be able to do well in Indy because when Goff had the year to get the contract, they had that running game, and Indy
Yep.
has the running game that he needs, and they have just as good a defense, so there's not as much pressure on him.
Yeah. And the offensive line is better in Indy.
Yeah,
Frank Reich is a solid coach that's known to do wonders with quarterbacks. Man, I honestly, just thinking about it right now, I would love to see Goff go to Indy. I mean, I would want Stafford to go there because it'd be like in our best interest. But I think that that's kind of like a match made in heaven, to be honest.
yeah, and because Goff wouldn't necessarily garner a first round pick or as much compensation as you would have to give up for Stafford or Rodgers.
Yeah, I think the Rams want him gone, and I think the hardest thing is finding a team that can take on his contract. And I think Indy would be like, okay, we don't have to give up a ton to get him. And now we have a guy that's under contract for however many more years. It's a stable kind of thing. Man, I don't know. I think they would love to get that kind of a thing going.
You might be right. That's a good one.
Okay, so next up we got Jacksonville, which we're kind of linking to Watson and this whole number one pick thing. I think we kind of already covered it, just kind of from the other side. I'd say other than that, they're not buyers. I don't really think they'd go after Stafford or any of that. I think they would rather take Trevor Lawrence with the number one and go from there.
Yeah. Goff's only under contract for another 3 years. 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah,
Sorry.
four. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was a little more than that. Yeah, four. I mean, four's that's solid, man. I mean, if you can afford that contract, which Indy can.
Yeah, it's not that bad of a cap hit. Like the issue is the dead cap hit with that contract. Like 2021, it's $27 million. It's like 25 to 27 a year.
Yeah,
Oh no, never mind. That's cash. 34. Yeah, it's a little higher. Sorry, I assumed the cap hit would be the last column.
yeah. I was thinking. I thought I read something that it was like an average of like 31 million a year or something.
So 2021, it's 30, call it 35 million, then 32 million, 32 million, and then 28 million.
Okay. So yeah, so maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. Um, Jacksonville more than likely it's Watson or Trevor Lawrence. So then next up we got the Raiders with Derek Carr. I think that they are buyers thinking that they can get something better than Carr and he would be sold as a byproduct. I don't think that they would just straight up sell him and not have something in return and like draft a guy or do something out of free agency. I think I think Gruden's like smitten on getting a better seasoned veteran, and that's like it's that or he's just going to find a way to hang on to him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and this is the year like where his I believe his it has his lowest or his second lowest dead cap hit. If they were just besides so after this year if his dead cap hit for 2021 is less than 3 million. If they wait one more year, there'd be no dead cap hit.
It's still so low that if you can
Yeah,
get the deal, you take it. But who could they get? I
I
think
don't
they're
know.
on the outside looking in, to be honest.
Yeah, they would have to. I, I don't know how they'd be able to get any of the guys.
Yeah. So I think it's wishful thinking, but I don't think that they got a real shot. And Mayock could do something, but I don't know, man. We've just not seen enough from Mayock in that regard, making those kind of trades. So
Yeah, and
I'm,
they're already 20 million over.
oh yeah, so yeah, no, let's just say they're definitely unlikely.
Yeah, but they
Oh,
do. They have Mariota, so they could sell Carr and roll next year with Mariota, who I thought played pretty well in the games he played.
yeah, that's an interesting idea. Selling Carr and hanging on to Mariota.
Which that would also bring him under the cap.
Yeah, that could be their play if they're going to make a play. But
Yeah,
Carr had such a good year. I don't know. It's tough. It's like the classic Philip Rivers, Matthew Stafford, Jay Cutler. Like he's like good enough that you don't want to get rid of him because odds are you're not going to get anybody better, and so it's like you're like afraid to make that move.
Yeah,
It just
exactly.
because it's like if you don't end up with somebody better, your ass gets fired. So yeah. All right, so let's just say they're on the outside looking in. That takes us to Miami with Tua. They would be buyers basically for Watson only.
Exactly. And I don't see them doing anything else.
And they have the draft capital, and they could put Tua in the mix. So it's an all or nothing thing there. The Patriots are next. They're the one here that getting some interference. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You kind of got muffled.
Yeah, I just got a lot of interference for some reason.
There you go. It fixed itself.
So yeah, so the Patriots I think are buyers, and I think that they're, that like we talked about, they're a value buyer, which could mean any number of guys other than Watson and Rodgers, most likely. Like if
Hmm.
the market got cold for Stafford, maybe they could sneak in and make a move on him. If the deal was right with Philly, they could go after Wentz. Um, Goff, I think, is probably a no because of the cost of his contract. I think that that's probably more than Belichick would want to pay,
Hmm.
because that's now outside of the value realm.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah. Okay. And did we talk about Matt Ryan?
We did when we talked about
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah. It'd be outside, but it could happen.
Could. I think probably best bet would be it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to do something, but I don't know.
It's how aggressive are they going to be, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so then next up we got the Jets. It seems like if they're going to buy, it's going to be Watson. And I don't hear them talking about Stafford or anybody else really.
No, if they're gonna buy, it's gonna be Watson.
Do you think that they're trying to sell Darnold regardless of whether or not they can get Watson? Because they do have a high draft pick.
I think it's a possibility. They seem to be talking up Darnold a lot, from what I've been hearing. So it's a possibility they're trying to increase his value.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay. So then last but not least, we got Pittsburgh as a maybe, and that's basically all about Big Ben's contract. Here's the thing is if he retired, man, it's a small sample size, but I could see them actually rolling the dice on Mason Rudolph.
For some reason, I thought they also signed
Oh, Haskins to a options
Haskins
contract.
to an up. Yeah,
Yeah, I could see them rolling with Mason Rudolph and Haskins, man. And whichever one comes out on top.
I think they would have to. Like, I mean, they're 30 million over the cap as it is.
Yeah, so they're not a buyer. They're kind of like it's almost like a seller that they just want Roethlisberger to retire.
Yeah, because I mean, it would save them 19 million. I mean, they still have to cut somewhere else, but
Yeah,
yeah, their best bet is he retires, and I mean, hell, even draft like what's his face, Mac Jones from Atlanta, or get somebody, just roll the dice with, like you said, with Rudolph, or
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you got Rudolph and Haskins, man. One of them could rise to the top, and if they falter, you go to the other one. And if they falter again, well, then your season's fucked, and you're drafting a guy. So, you know. All right. So that's basically the A to Z. We did the nitty gritty way of going through it. What are the key takeaways here, man? I mean, obviously Watson's the top guy. Stafford maybe number two. Dak is like an unknown at this point. You know, the injury thing could put a damper on him. Rodgers probably in play, even though what they're saying. Fucking Goff could be like a sneaky pick to Indy. I'm just, I guess I'm trying to hit the highlights here.
yeah, it's like I said, like the over under is somewhere around 16 new starting quarterbacks. Somewhere around half the league is going to change their quarterback from last year.
Yeah,
And it
could,
all
could.
could, and it all depends on where these players go. Because like for instance, if the Rams end up trading for Stafford, then they have to do something with Goff. If or Garoppolo and San Francisco, and
Yep. It's the chain reaction.
yeah, and there's once that first domino falls, I think you're going to see a lot of them fall. Once the Watson deal is done, you're going to see the Stafford deal. You're going to see what's going to happen with Rodgers. You're going to see what's going to happen with Garoppolo.
Yeah, and I gotta believe all this is gonna happen pretty fast because you're gonna want to get these deals done before the draft. And if you can't get them done before the draft, you're gonna want them done as soon as possible after the draft so that you got the guy in to learn the playbook and get in with the team, figure things out, and that way it can be a productive 2021. Otherwise, like, if you drag this on and you don't make the move until right before the season starts, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, I think if you don't get it done before the draft, the value you have to pay for them
Yeah.
increases.
Okay. Yeah, because you're a little more desperate at that point.
Yeah. It's like the reverse. Like the closer to the draft you get, the more the team that's trying to trade them, the more desperate that team gets. After the draft, the more desperate the team
The
that's trying to
buyer is.
buy the
Yeah.
buyer gets.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, shit. We boiled it down. I'm sure it's going to change 57,000 different ways, but that's not a bad start, man.
Yeah. Another thing I'm hearing is one of the dominoes could fall next week.
Would that be the Wentz thing? Because it's got to be within the first 3 days of the year or whatever?
Well, no, because like the league year doesn't start till March 17th. The reason I say next week
Oh, gotcha.
is the last time there was a big-ish quarterback trade was the Alex Smith to Washington trade that happened Super Bowl week. But I'm also hearing little mutterings that next week there you could get something.
Gotcha. Well, let's bring it on, man. We want to hear it. We want the excitement.
Exactly, exactly. And the speculation is interesting.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, this is where, like our teams are out of it. And so this is like the fun part, getting to think about all the cool, crazy things that could happen. Okay. So that wraps up our quarterback carousel. We are going on 2.5 hours. I did not have a question of the week because I kind of thought we would just be kind of rambling on here. So unless you want to pose a question of the week, we can just go straight to the wrap up.
I don't. It's just we along the same lines of where people thought these quarterbacks would go.
Yeah, just to see if we can get some hits on the comments.
Yeah.
Where do you think your guy's going to land, or what guy do you want to bring into town? Like, yeah, just tell us what your thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good with that. All right, so closing it up here. Anybody who's still watching, as always, we encourage you to play Name That Stadium, or in this case, hit us up on the question of the week. If you liked what you heard or saw, give us the thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, let us know how we're doing. And James, like always, man, it was a good time. And I'll catch up with you in a little bit, man.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.